Tonight, Cade's favourite film,
Solo.
Gordon's personal life,
We've got a mask.
and I say a forbidden word, base.
Oh, whoops, is it playing again? It is. So let's see here. Let's make that stop. No, wait, no, it is. It's just a little bit behind because streaming, right? Oh, I need to turn the volume down on this. We're a little out of practice on our streaming since we haven't done it in a little while. So, hey, everybody, welcome to Mission Control on a kind of a gloomy afternoon here in Denver, Colorado. I hope it's nice wherever you are. We have Mr. Sam with us today. Gordon, unfortunately, was not able to make it. He had an engagement that popped up that he had to go do that, but we'll forgive him this time.
Finally realized he hates us all, essentially, is what's happened.
But probably pretty much, exactly. But anyhow, we are here pretty much to answer you guys' questions today. So hopefully you guys have built some up and you can ask away. We do have console up and running, and we do have Pioneer decks up and running today also. I'll have to return those to their person that they were borrowed from tomorrow, but we have them for tonight. So if you guys have any questions on the Pioneer DJ stuff, please do ask. So
Here for one night only.
yeah, so one night only. And hopefully we'll get some good questions in there. So I would ask if Gordon's kind of gone to do a gig, sort of, but not quite a gig that all of us would love to be doing right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this lockdown's getting a little long in the tooth for all of us, I believe.
So am I.
So I guess we will just to fill some time while we're waiting for people to start asking questions. We have the challenge going on for Avo. I can't remember all the specifics on it suddenly because I didn't prepare. So why don't you tell us the specifics on it, Sam?
Okay, right. Let me go. Let me get my bribe, and I will carry on. So the hashtag Light Up Lockdown Challenge is just a little thing that Avolites have thrown together for you guys to have a little bit of a play with the software, especially since we're all stuck at home with not a lot else to do. It's a chance for you guys to brush up on your skills, have a little play, and you've got a few parameters that are essentially your rules for the competition. So if you haven't already, go and have a look on avolites.com/online resources. I will speedily type that in the comments now. And have a look at the slides that are on there. Essentially, the rules of the competition are you are limited to a set amount of fixtures, and you are also limited to only using the internal visualizer. So you've got a track that has been selected by the team at Avolites that you can download from a free, royalty-free company called Ben Sound, who we'd like you to tag in your post as well. And we'd like you to create a 1 minute-ish long performance for that track. So you've got your music, you can time code it, you can busk it yourself. As long as you upload a video of it using the internal visualizer, you will be judged, and you have to hashtag it Light Up Lockdown as well. And that is essentially the long and short of it. The fixtures you're limited to are 9 Roby Super Spikies, 6 BMFL blades, 6 BMFL wash beams, and 20 generic par 46 LED fixtures. So that's a fair amount to play with. That should be enough to keep you rocking and rolling for the better part of a minute. Everything is available on the online resources page. So there's a set of slides that have been put together as well with everything in there. It's 1 entry per person. And the prizes are, for the third prize, you're going to get yourself a bag of Avo swag, an official Avolites bag with some Avo swag within. Then the second prize is the same, but on top of that, you're going to get yourself an editor key. And the first prize is the bag and a brand new shiny black sparkly T1 USB license thing console is what I call it.
The USB interface, I think, is the
That's the word I was
is
looking
the
for.
correct term we're supposed to be using for it. So
That's the one. So not a bad haul, especially if, like me, the last tour you did, you had your backpack stolen. So absolutely, I'd be happy with anything at this point because it's also had all my clothing in it. So I'm basically sitting here completely naked at the moment.
it's not a happy thing to see on camera, but anyhow, so yeah, you know, if T1, remember, it'll give you access to one universe of output, and on version 12 plus, you're going to also get access to the sim, so you can use as many universes you need, but still have the spoiler, but be able to do 3, 4, 5 universes for pre-programming or whatever you need, or just having a good old time playing with it.
Oh, yes. It should be fun. There's been a few that have come in that have been pretty interesting so far. If you search the hashtag, you can find a few. And yes, I'm hoping we see quite a lot of people get involved with this one because that could be a nice little way to start the summer off.
Yeah, definitely could be. So we're still waiting for some questions from you guys. Let's get out there and ask. I see a lot of you out there. I see Brian there, and I see Francesca's joined us, as well as Mr. Cully. Daniel's usually good for some questions.
Oh, look at that.
Yay! Thank you, Ollie. Can you guys go over the different types of masters and the difference between a scale master and an HTP master? Sure, we can do that. So let's switch on over to our mobile display. And if I forget to switch screens, we play our standard game of y'all have to drink every time I forget. So
I will be hot on that. And I don't even drink alcohol, but I'll be hot on that for you all.
Right. So we see here we've just got the Titan Go interface up here for us. So different types of masters we have. We can go and record and then create master. We have the intensity masters. So that's going to be intensity of any of your fixtures. Our rate master is going to be rate based on percentage. So a percentage of the save speed of the effect and or chase. So if you had it set at 30 BPM and you run your rate master at 50%, you're going to get 15 BPM out of that playback. BPM, just like it sounds, BPM, whatever that source happens to come from the BPM master, from Tap Tempo, or as a version 13, the Pioneer DJ stuff. Size master, just like it sounds, you can control the size of the shaper and effect, again, percentage based. So if your size is set to 20 and you run your size master at 50%, this could be the equivalent of the size 10. Pixel Mapper is Pixel Mapper Layer Masters, which is going to be your masters for the Pixel Map effects, and Scene Master is, as I usually like to call it, kind of an advanced blind that works not on just the programmer, but also on playbacks. And the difference between Scale Master and HTP Master. A Scale Master is going to be scale it in relative to what they are from other playbacks. So say that you've got a playback running your BMFLs at 50% and you set your scale master to 50%, you're going to get 25% output from the fixtures because half of half is 25%, right? So of a HTP master, the difference is it's going to be the highest takes precedence, which means that it's if you have a playback set at 50 and you have your HTTP master set at 75%, your light's going to output 75% because that's higher than 50%. If you drop your HTTP master to 25%, you're still going to get 50% out of your fixtures because 50% is higher than 25%. I hope that makes sense.
We got internal capture we could throw up and just do it.
Well, we could do that, but that'd be much too easy.
It's barely an inconvenience.
Barely an inconvenience.
Yes!
Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. And we actually do have full version of capture up also, so actually I'll just put both up on screen just because, well, we can. So let's see here. What does this playback do? That should work. Well, nah, we'll copy this one over to another playback just to make room on faders. We'll go to here. And so we see if we got our fixtures up, and we'll go ahead and select we'll make a size master for the BMFLs, or group master using it. So we'll just do copy our all BMFLs to this fader, and it defaults to scale master. So we see here, if we've got our lights at about 50% of output or so, and bring up our scale master, we can now scale it accordingly to that 50%. Right. If we changed it to an HTTP master, so playback options, select the master, and change it to HTTP. Since it's at 100%, our lights are now at 100%. If we drop it down, they drop down. If we put our lights up to 100% here, and we do it here, well, actually, it's taking it over now. It's controlling the output of those fixtures, actually relative to where they were, because I think in this playback, they're not at 100%. But we can see as I bring it up, it comes down. When I get to a certain point, no matter when I bring it down, the lights stay at a certain level. So does that make sense, Ollie?
They are both incredibly useful tools.
Yeah.
I'm a big lover of an HTTP master in a rock and roll club environment, throwing fixtures around, chopping in and out of effects, that sort of thing. But I have been very known to throw lots and lots of scale masters around in various contexts, particularly in theatre and particularly in that more sort of sedate, potentially corporate stuff where you've got one guy who loves being flooded with light and, you know, prancing around on stage, and then you get your next guest come up and speak and they are completely in hatred of any form of light coming anywhere near them, and they want it down at like 2% just so they can barely be visible through their own haze of ego.
Yes.
Not speaking from experience at all.
So the music track is 2 minutes, but we're doing a 1 minute presentation. Can we pick? Oh, Brian's asking about the contest, and I see you already answered it. So any other questions we have there?
Just for clarity, Brian, I literally hadn't seen a limitation on what bit of the track you can pick. I think it's just a minute purely for the sake of convenience, because 100 minutes is over an hour and a half just to look at in and of itself. So I imagine whacking that and doubling it with however many entries you get, it's going to spend like 3 or 4 days of just solid staring at internal visualizer clips. So I imagine it's partly just that.
I think the other reason would be the spoiler. So you can record a minute or so of
yes.
of your gig there, and hopefully you might have to do it hopefully only have to do it once, but if you get your spoiler in the middle of your minute, you can just redo it and hopefully catch the timing without the spoiler popping up in the middle of your little show. So
everyone's ending is just going to be the spoiler kicking in. I'm quite
probably
anyone on sin.
What was that he said? It came out.
I'm gonna not comment on that, Brian, and I'm gonna leave that up to your own interpretation.
Rex is asking, is it possible to disable ArtNet from a fader? I don't know exactly what you mean. You can disable ArtNet with a macro, but I don't know how I would disable it on a fader, or what exactly you mean by disabling it on a fader, because I don't know why I'd want to have disable macro on a fader, waste a fader for that, but maybe try and ask it a little again, Rex, to make sure that I'm thinking all the way.
Yeah, I'm trying to work my head around that one. Unless you mean sort of kill the output from a fader, but I mean that's going to be the same either with ArtNet or anything else. So I'm assuming you're talking about essentially turning off the output of the console.
Yeah, and that you can do with a macro through, and actually, I think it might actually already be in the show library. Actually,
it's on the shift key as well. You've got that disable DMX output, which turns everything off depending on what.
True. You do have that, and let's see here. Let's look at our macros.
Yeah, he's Rex. The way I would do that is just hold that Avo logo down and bash that disable output button on soft key E.
Okay. Just kill the output when you have two different types of consoles. Yes, I would just do it that way. Or if I was using streaming ACN, I would prefer to use the streaming ACN merge priorities, which do have macros built in. I actually have that. I'll make it a little bigger so everyone can see it a little bit better. We can see here we got the streaming ACN priority macros here, and though I'm not seeing the macro for just turning off ArtNet as a whole, I believe you could record one easily enough.
Yeah.
Just doing a button press record macro should be able to kill it. Or there might even be one on the wiki already that Seb has made, because that seems like something Seb would do.
I'll just hopefully drop the right link in the comment section there. Oh, I did. First try.
Oh, Corey asks, can you explain what the update button does? That is a good one, because it's a button that I hardly ever press. I don't do much with it. What do you use it for, if anything, Sam?
I'm pretty similar to you, to be honest. I know a lot of people like it with bits and pieces, but like off the top of my head, it's essentially a similar way to using your merge function if you were recording or updating a palette or a playback. And that's kind of why I guess maybe it's fallen by the wayside a little bit, but I know a lot of people like it for cues. I don't know if he's watching, but I know John Richardson is a big fan of the update button, and he uses it quite extensively in cue lists, but it's quite contextual. It'll sort of redefine itself based on what you're working in. So if you're working in a cue list and you need to update specific elements of that cue, depending on what you've done, you have that option there.
Yeah. Well, you see, here if I've got this red and blue playback up, and we'll make it so you guys can actually see it. Haha, there's your first sip.
There we go.
There we go. There's always got to be one, isn't there? So we've got this red and blue playback here. If I select the BMFLs and make them yellow, and then I hit the update key, it gives me the option to either update the palette that was used they're currently playing back, which is what it was red, or I can update the cue itself, the one named red and blue. So if I was to click on that and update it, and then press enter, and I hadn't cleared it and dropped my playback and refired it, we can see that my BMFLs stay in yellow now. So that would be one of the things that it does do a lot more in cue listing, but as I have said in the past, I'm not a huge cue list guy. I'm more of a on the fly kind of guy, and that's just how I am.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've just had a little look myself. It's very, very similar. Yes, it gives you essentially that option of if you're working with more than one thing at a time, and you want the option to do essentially your record merge process, but for multiple areas, you've got that option there. Doing it in cue list, I've just seen I can update multiple cues at once if I needed to with hard values wherever those fixtures were. That sort of thing is kind of useful as well. It depends if you're working with things like nested palettes, or it's going to vary based on how you've put together that set of pieces of information, essentially.
Yeah. Eero's got a question for us, and I believe that's how I'm supposed to say your name, if I remember you told us before, and now I'm hoping I said it right. Could you generally explain the bit about advantages to have and configure an operator profile to a person who has never tweaked it, but basically learned consoles without ever touching it? Having different operator profiles or user profiles, it's just for if especially with someone, say you've got an experienced guy and an inexperienced guy, and there's something in the user setting that I like one way and you don't. Let's say that you like Halos and I hate Halos. I love Halos, but we'll pretend that I hate them today. I could have my own user.
I can hate Halos for you.
There you go. Well, Sam hates Halos and I love them. So what Sam can do is have his own user that has all Halos turned off automatically, so that when he switches to his user, he gets the Halos turned off, and he doesn't have to be with my annoyingness that I like them, or any other user settings in particular. So if we go into user settings here, and we'll make it a little bit bigger so it's a little easier to see. Let's switch user and want to user settings. Say that he likes Chase Snap on and off. He can have it on for him, and I can have it off for me. Really just kind of depends on what you want in there when using multiple people on a console. If it's you're the only one using that console, just set them how you like for the main operator user, and don't really worry about it. I think I've only ever used that in a install situation where I've set it for the way that I want it, and not for the way that the other guys at the venue may like how they like to program their shows. And I think they're silly for how they like it, but so I can set it my way and have it different. Otherwise, on my own personal consoles, I've never changed a user at all.
Yeah, I've had it occasionally, just with the convenience of how show files. If I've done house teching in local venues, I will batch my own user on there just purely for the fact that I know I will do certain things differently to some of the newer users or some of the users who are there more than me, and they're going to have things set up on that operator user themselves how they want it. But we used to have like 3 or 4 freelance guys in a couple of venues, and we'd use the same patch so far because it was just simpler, but we'd have our own user and handle world. Just saved us the trouble of messing around with bits and pieces. We knew we could turn the desk on, swap our user profiles over in our handle world.
Yeah.
As long as we didn't do anything majorly intensive and throw 100 million of our own groups in there, it was pretty much fine.
Yeah, I used it to just have a different. It was more about the handle world rather than the user settings. For like an opening band to keep a guy keep his fingers off my strobes, stuff like that. I had my own handle world, or had his own handle world that didn't have strobes in it, so you couldn't accidentally use them every night. So that's how I broke him, was by taking it away from him, basically.
That's the way. I don't hate Halos, Andy. I just was saying that so that Cade had, a reason to love them as much as he does. But exactly. I use Halos just as much.
So let's see here. Brian's asking, when using Unfold, you can make a group with your unfolded cells, but your main fixture window is replaced with the unfolded fixtures. You just have to refold it here. Let's see here. I've got.
We do have tighten up.
Yeah. So if we hit unfold and I unfold my all Q picks, it's going to have. Actually, that was the group. So actually, I'll just hit unfold and exit unfold. We'll open up our fixtures and groups window. Then I'll go to my Q picks wall, and then if I was to unfold. Why can't I tell? There it is. And select this QPix panel. You can see all the cells here. To get out of that, I just have to click unfold again and then exit unfold. And now I'm back to my regular fixture window. So you just have to and I think you can also exit out of it. I know you can for when you're doing it with a chase. Let's double check here. And then we right click and exit. Nope. For exiting out of a fixture, you do have to press unfold and then exit unfold to get back out of it.
I am personally a huge fan of using the attribute editor for that sort of thing, just to purely avoid the fact that I've forgotten to press unfold a second time and I'm wondering what on earth I've done. Using the attribute editor gives you those cells immediately at the top of the attribute editor window, which is just another way of grabbing those cells and making a group with them.
Yeah. Brian asks, can you make a group that includes both unfolded cells and regular fixtures in a specific order? You cannot change the unfolded cells in the fixture order, at least in version 10. I don't know if that got changed or if that's still the way it is. There's something funny on it yet. There's something funny there, but I can't remember what it is. So let's see here. Let's go to our rig and we'll just select these fixtures. We'll go here, we'll unfold this, we'll select these cells, and we'll make this group here. And then we'll do shapes and effects, pixel map. Actually, we'll do it this other way because I prefer to do it this way. So group, edit group. Select the group, fixture order. So we could set the, it won't let you do it with the cells like that. And there's a reason for it, but I can't remember what the reason was. I had it explained to me. Off the top of my head. I had it explained to me by Ollie, and I cannot for the life of me remember why it is that way. Oops.
There is at a certain point, I find myself gravitating towards building sort of layouts in the pixel mapper.
Yeah.
And doing it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. When you do it with cells, you need to do it in the layout editor. Thank you for saying that. Jogged my brain. So if we do group,
there we go.
Edit group, select the group, and then edit layout, we can see we've got all the cells and the group here. Let me zoom this out a little bit. Now group, fixture order, and layout are extremely related. They're to the point they're almost the same thing. So if I want any fixture I wanted to be 1 in my fixture order, I would put in this column. Any one 2, this one 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth down the line. The vertical columns are going to be your fixture order number. So this would be 1, this would be oh, I don't know however wide this is. I don't still sit there and counting it, but you get the idea there. So what you'd want to do, Brian, is edit it in layout, and using the layout editor, set them up by, uh, instead of fixture order, set your fixture order in here by laying them out horizontally, to get them. And even if I put this fixture here, drag it down there, these both fixtures are still number one. Even if this is, all the way down here, it's still fixture order one. I hope that helps you there. And of course, remember to save a fixture layout, just close the window.
And of course, if you are wanting to do sort of that multi-celled, multi-ordered layout, you've got that rotation angle there. So if you've got linear cells and you want to sort of skew them one way, you've always got that option to put them across columns as well, which can give you some kind of interesting effects.
Correct. Corey asks, just to confirm, two consoles cannot be in a session if they are on different software versions. Example, an Arena on V12 and a T2 on V12. Correct, they must be on the same software version to have a multi-user session. Basically, when you're multi-user sessioning, you're basically taking the show file and loading it across the network. That's why it's under disk and not under some other menu. That's how I try to get that in everybody's head, because I still have the nasty habit of I go to the system menu when trying to start a multi-user system session instead of going to disk first, and I try to help my students in classes by always saying, remember, you're loading the show file across the network, so that's why it's under disk, and hopefully they won't make the mistake that I make every time when I go into system and try to find it, and I'm like, where the heck is it? And I'm so confused, and go, oh yeah, because it's in the disk menu, dummy. And there was just tighten that sessions there. Sessions view. I've only got one console turned on right now on the network here, but if there was more than one, we could see it here, obviously. But that's why it's under disk, because you're loading the show file across the network, and of course, show files have to be on the same software version. Basically, we won't need to talk about it. There's some technicality there. Obviously, show files will usually go forward running from an old software version, but that doesn't count in multi-user sessions. So that's why that is. So what else we got out there for questions there, folks? Yeah, Andy, I think we've all gotten stuck in the unfold menu more than once and been like, why can't I find anything? And gotten angry about it. And then, oh yeah, that was me, not the console.
70% of the time, it's the squidgy bit.
Exactly.
I'm incredibly squidgy, so it's usually me.
But it's the peepcock error. The problem exists between keyboard and user and operator.
That's the one.
Been there.
Oh, yeah. Right, folks, what we got? We need some more questions coming in. There's 17 of you here, so there's got to be something burning away.
Can you remote control a console from the PC suite? By remote, what do you mean? Remote as in not in the same venue? Or remote as in using a tablet computer as an advanced remote, using it over wireless? If that is the case, yes. I do that with my Surface Pro sometimes. I will, actually, we could probably, I can show that right here, actually. Let me get the PC suite fired up and make sure I'm on the right software version. What the heck's Titan Switch?
There was a time let's say not too long ago, it feels like maybe many, many years ago when lockdown started, but there was a time when I would have given anything some days to be able to remote control the console from the PC suite at home. Now I would give anything to not be at home.
So you could get away with it maybe through a VPN, but you need a lot of traffic to do multi-user session. It's not going to probably play out very well for you in all reality. So let me get here. Yeah, I've got the Surface firing up here.
If you were really cheeky,
you could Team Viewer in.
Yeah.
I've maybe done something like that before and controlled something remotely using Team Viewer, but I wouldn't try to use it. I wouldn't try to multi-user session across the network. It eats up too much traffic for the way it's designed, and you would have a very poor experience.
You'd be sad, is what Kate is saying.
Yes. It would be a poor user experience. That's so...
Oh, hitting the buzzwords.
So corporate of me. So corporate of me.
But yeah, there are ways and means, but not many of
Yeah.
them are gonna. I mean, it's the same sort of principle as trying to remote control almost anything. You know, like if you're dealing with computers and I used to do loads and loads of remote access IT networking stuff, and it was always, a similar principle of, it's not going to be perfect, and I would never really recommend it unless in some kind of dire situation.
Yeah.
Where you're many miles away and the operator's just decapitated himself on something. But
yeah, I even try to avoid using it in support as much as possible, because I would rather teach someone how to fix their problem than just fix it for them. So they're not just calling me next week with the same problem.
yeah.
So we see here, I've actually got the Surface Pro up. I don't have a scene set for having the Surface and the mobile up on the same screen at a time, but here we could just see it. I could obviously take the Surface, and if I had a wireless connection, I'm using wired to make sure everything stays good in my internal network here. But I could walk around the venue with this Surface Pro instead of being tethered to a console, which has worked out nicely. I prefer it over the iPad, or I've never hidden my dislike for our remote app. I think it's not as spiffy as it could be, but using the super remote, as I've called it, has been nice. So
if you're going to do that, if you're going to go wireless, solid routers, dual band routers, absolutely the way.
Yeah. I don't mean lie, but say for pre-programming a system with the console set up, I still wouldn't multi-user session it. I would do TeamViewer at the most. Unfortunately, with TeamViewer on for everyone else in the world, you can't install the full version of TeamViewer on a console, and the TeamViewer that's on the console only Avolites can access. That's a safety valve for you. Obviously, you could build a PC suite, you could have TeamViewer on it and connect to it that way. Yeah, I wouldn't try to remotely connect in, even pre-programming, unless it's got a massive, really nice network on the far end. Like I here at my house happen to have fiber, so I have a gigabit connection. I could probably remote into my house if I had another gigabit connection somewhere else and probably get away with it, but not unless both ends are fast. So you could try it, but I don't think you would be more pissed off than having to go through the effort of flying there. You know. Can you elaborate on using a Surface Pro? Can I control my mobile that way wirelessly in a venue? Yeah. Well, I'm not using the remote. I'm just using the Titan software on here, David. This is actually the one that's up on screen right now. Is my Surface Pro that usually does all of my PowerPoint stuff, as we can see here. I usually do it with that, but I have Titan installed in here also, and I carry around a wireless base station. Actually, the one I use is currently that I've been happy with is the TP-Link RE500, and I've been pretty happy with that one. I'll use it to hook into my Quartz at front of house, and then I'll grab my Surface Pro and just run the software on it, connect to it multi-user session, just like we would have up on screen here. So I just select that, connect to it, connect to multi-user, and we'll give it a moment to load. And you see it now has loaded the show file that was on our other console just a moment ago. So we can see that playback here, and the group master we made a minute ago are right there. So
I can confirm he was moving his hands onto the other laptop there. It's not some kind of witchcraft.
Yes, I do have two things here. Just not everything set up to show that both at once here. So
on the subject of the wireless aspect, I actually just happened to have sat next to me. I bought probably about 4 months ago now. I was touring and desperately needed some sort of remote focusing, be it through the super remote, as you call it, or through the remote app on my phone. I just went on Amazon and I ended up picking up a dual band Wi-Fi router from a company called Tender on Amazon. It's called the Tender AC 1200. It's 2.4 and 5 gigahertz router, and for $19.99 I expected it to be utterly awful and I'd have to buy 3 of them, and this thing survived 3 months of touring. It survived me accidentally kicking off one of the antenna and bolting it back on, and it's still going like strong with good signal in massive venues. So
Nice.
it can be done a lot cheaper than some people expect.
Yeah. And David, to answer your question, for version 12 plus, yes, you would require an editor key plugged into the Surface Pro to be able to do that. I have an editor key that I bought, so I can do stuff like that. Here on the desk, I just plugged in a T2 because that was handier than my editor key at the moment, because I had a T2 sitting on my desk.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So that's a fair question from Brian there. I'm with him. I tend to do multi-user and backup, but I can see potential advantages to running the backup. I know a lot of festival sites, we occasionally hide a console at the back of the stage, just literally sitting in backup mode by itself, and it's like our last resort. So I'll have 3 consoles on the network, main and backup, both running multi-user and backup front of house, and then I'll have either a TNP at back of stage or something like a Quartz just sitting on the network for like the absolute emergency. You know, we've had the front of house tent has blown away and a storm's arrived and everything's gone, you know, very explodey, and that's the point that I can then use the takeover on the Quartz. But the rest of the time it's just sitting there idle and doesn't really need to take all of that processing on.
Yeah, the other advantage of having it just in backup is there's no fiddly bits. So if someone comes up and bumps a bunch of faders, your show doesn't go psycho. Like if we do here, I've got, I exited the session we were just in, and I'm going to open it up again. If I just connect to it and connect as backup, we'll give it a moment to load. And we see here that now I can't, even if I shouldn't be able to fire these if I'm remembering correctly. I'm going to make a liar out of myself. Get to here. Yeah. Well, no, yeah, because it's not playing on the other one. So even though I brought this fader up on here, it's not actually playing out to the show file, and it's not playing up to capture. See here we'll put the mobile and capture up on screen. Even though I'm moving this fader up and down, it is not playing on the back wall or this one. If we turn this one down, we can see that none of them are playing now. So that's the advantage of having his backup, is there's no someone gets silly, drunk, some drunk knocks a fader up. You're not going bah! and having a rough day. So that's okay, Brian. Having questions for days is a good thing, because well, that's why we're here today, is to answer questions. So I know that there's a spec for computers to run Titan, but what is their preferred laptop that everyone in the office uses just because it seems to work best? No, I don't. I always say to everybody, just use the use one that fits the minimum specs, because basically, well, I learned in support the hard way that if you tell someone to use a particular computer, that you now own that computer, and any problem they have with it is now your problem. So that's one reason I don't suggest anything to anybody, to be honest. But otherwise, just anything that meets the specs. I mean, I've got the Lenovo I have that's been my Titan mobile computer since version 9. Runs like a little tank, no issues with it. Other than it did get a slight crack in one of the plastic bezels, but a little bit of super glue, and that problem went away. I've been pretty happy with my Surface Pro 6 when it comes to using it for a Titan 1 or a T2 or a T1 for that matter, and just doing a small show like that. It's been working fine. But yeah, I don't have a brand loyalty when it comes to Windows laptops. I'm an Apple whore, but when it comes to PCs, I have no brand loyalty whatsoever when it comes to Windows PCs. It's whatever fits my bill, and the price is right usually.
I'm very much. I mean, I'm a massive computer nerd, and I will happily sit on custom builders for days. But I do think now, in sort of the market and the technology we're sort of living through at the minute, I don't really see why you wouldn't go for a custom build, because custom builds are, in a lot of ways, more spec for less money. And that didn't used to be the way. Like, it used to be, you'd go and you'd look at consumer branded goods, and you could get a 16 gigabyte with an SSD, and it would cost you, a fair whack of money. You can even look at like razor blades now. Yes, they're a prosumer brand, but they're quite damn expensive. And I spec'd up a custom Windows laptop myself on PC Specialist, and I've done it on overclockers, and I've done it on Scan and all that. And I came up with higher. I think I was a good 20 or I was a good 5 or 6 pass mark levels higher than the Razer Blade was, and I was about £1,000 cheaper, which is a big difference. It's a really big difference. So I'm quite a fan of just go and have a look. If you know what the minimum specs are and you've got a little bit of budget, go and have a look at some of the custom builders, because it's a lot cheaper than it used to be, and you can get one hell of a spec for not a lot of money these days. And it's good fun. Like, you can nerd out over PC components, which is mostly what I do these days.
Yeah. So let's see here. John had a question. There's a way to put a custom-made capture view on an executor button. Yes, just record it to that button. That's hard to show here because I don't have a camera to go onto my mobile here. But to record to anything, say you've got I assume you're probably talking about the button that says visualizer on it on a mobile or a Quartz. To record to that one, to record to an already existing workspace, we'll record it onto, we'll just make another one. So we'll just put this one here. Let's say now, so if we hit this one, you see it all goes to that. When I go to this one, I want it to be, instead of having capture just here, I want it to be the entire top. So we can change that view like this, and we'll just throw some lights on so we can see stuff. There we go. And then I want to record over that already existing workspace. I want to hit the open or view key. Some consoles it's labeled open, some it's labeled view, others it's even labeled open/view. So you find that button on your keyboard, go ahead and click it, and then record workspace. And then when you want to record over, and then replace. So now when I go to this one, I get that. If I go to this one, I now get that view instead of just it being right here where it was a moment ago. I hope that makes sense for your question.
And just to add into that, John, if you're in the Capture Visualizer settings, you can actually set custom camera angles and all that, and you can add those into the 4 default camera views that are built in when you start, and they will also be recorded as part of your workspace as well.
Yes, this is true also.
If you fancy being like, crazy random camera angles, bashing through like all the interesting side of stage positions as well, you can do all of that in exactly the same way.
Yeah. So let's see here. Dennis asks, hi, I'm still very new to the Avolites wireless options. I have a QNS. I have a Sapphire console that has 3 floors away from my stage. Is there a way I can control my Sapphire on an iPad remotely via load networkers? Is there a web page where I can read up more on this? There's just on your iPad would just be the app from the store. And 3 floors away, that's all going to be in your wireless network line in your building. There's a web page where I can read up more on this. There is a video I did 2 weeks ago on the remote. So if you go to Avolite, go to youtube.com/AvolitesUSA, there is a remote video and you can watch the video.
Yeah, it's going to be all based on the network you're working within. You're going to have a solid network across all 3 of those floors that is all linked up. If you've got separate mesh networks across separate floors in that building, you're going to have more to mess around with. But yeah, it's kind of hard to do a defined, this is how you do it in that place. But a general solid networking and having a look at Cade's videos on the remote app, or just connectivity using multi-user sessions, it should cover most of what you need to know there.
Yeah. Can you record camera view with a fade time and have the camera move smoothly? Not in Capture component. That would be a feature of the full version of Capture.
Yes.
And then you would just control the camera as a fixture and move it around just like you would any other moving light in your rig.
Indeed. And of course, you've got 3 cameras in Capture, so you can patch all 3 of those alpha, beta, and gamma views to get fun with if you want to start playing around with that kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm not seeing any other questions. I see you answered. Okay, yeah. That one. So what else is someone got for us? Hey, James, good to see you, brother. Haven't gotten to see James in quite a while now. He took a class with me in New Orleans, and then he went over to the UK and took one, I think, with Gordon, or maybe you might have been in there
He
too.
came, yeah, he came to see me. He had a full week with me, James did. And we
Yeah,
had,
yeah.
I introduced him to the takeaways over here. It was good fun.
Ah, yeah. He's a fun cat. He's a cool cat. So.
I love James to pieces. I hope you are doing well, my friend. Oh, it's all gone quiet. Still, so everyone's still here, so we've managed to be engaging for a little while.
We have. Yeah, unfortunately, it's just the capture component. I don't want to say limited. It's just there's less features in it because it's not meant to. It's not meant to replace the full version of capture. It's just to give you a representation of your rig, like I have up on a screen right now, where I've got the full version of capture and I've got the trussing and the trees. For whatever reason, Gordon put trees in this show file. The band gear, the band, and all that. And I don't need that in my internal capture because I don't need it eating up the processing power. So I mean, that's really kind of what that boils down to, and why it is what it is.
I'll say, David, just as a random aside, the way I've been talking about the contest is really it is much more judged on what you can do with those fixtures in that less elaborate environment. It's all about what you can put together with that limited sort of set of constraints. We're not judging it on how pretty the environment looks. We're not judging it on how great you are at building the structures and the stage and bringing cool sorts of camera angles around. It's like level playing field. What cool stuff can you do with these things, and how much fun can you have while doing it?
Yeah. Dennis asks, if I trigger a fader using the remote control like an iPad, will it trigger the motorized fader on the console as well? If you're using the remote app from Avo on an iPad or iPhone or Android device, no, because you cannot control faders through that app. You can only record stuff recorded in your Playbacks workspace. Watch that video, all that's in there. If I was to trigger it using the Surface Pro, like I was talking about earlier, where I'm doing a remote session, yes, the fader would move.
Yeah. Oh yes, Brian. I remember those days of the old school Avo visualizer.
The old man, I worked that bad boy back in the day. We had a Pearl and bought the remember when the dongle. Brian probably remembers it. You may not, Sam. When the dongle was a parallel port dongle.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I still have it around here somewhere. I should find that someday and put it in, and take a picture of it and see who else would ever saw one. But that would, you plug it into a parallel port on your computer, and then you could hook in using a serial to MIDI cable, plug it into the console, and then make your lights wiggle on the laptop. But for free in 1997, 98, it was the bee's knees, especially for the price. I mean, I think the dongle itself was like less than $100.
Wow.
And the only other thing at the time you could get that I really knew of was WYSIWYG, and that was thousands of dollars. Yeah. Yes, it looked a lot better, but the price was right for the other one, and
for the poor people.
Yes, I made gigs wiggle. So it.
Do you know what that feature was?
Yeah.
Feature was tight.
Ryan pulled a graphics tablet and puck off the shelf if anyone wants one. I think Dave from Partech was trying to give one away in the classic support group the other day, and I don't think he succeeded in anyone taking it, but Brian's offering it also there. I never actually, I think I used it like on 2 shows on the Pearl that I had, and never really used it again. It was kind of one of those, that's cool, but it was more effort to set up than it was to use, at least on the shows that I was doing. Maybe if I had a long-term install and my rig was the same all the time, or like maybe a tour, it could have been useful, but for one-off shows, or a weekend festival, it was more work to set up than it was to use.
We've been in lockdown so long that we think we've been sat here for like a good 22 years, and we're now back in like talking about vintage things. It's great.
Right.
It's how long it feels like we've been sat waiting around to do something again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, Brian. I used it twice. Exactly. It was really cool, and I thought I'd use it. I think if I search hard enough, I might actually have a high resolution scan of the underlay.
Oh wow.
So because those things were almost unobtainium, they were really hard to get your hands on back in the day. So I went to Kinko's and had them scan it, high resolution. I think it was like one of the first thumb drives I ever bought was so that I could have them put it that high resolution on a thumb drive because
Nice.
the floppy disk was too small. So yeah, that's how long ago that was.
Humble
When
brags.
I think it was like a 256 megabyte thumb drive. Yeah, find one that small now. You'd never find one.
Yeah.
It's hard to find
Yeah.
2 gigabyte ones now.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's-
You're still going to have to pry the experts out of my cold, dead hands.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that that cannot be talked about might change that, but we'll see when we can talk about that.
We're going to get some gaffer tape and I'll tape my gob shut.
Exactly. Soon, though. Soon.
Oh, yeah.
So, any other questions out there, guys? We're here for you to try to get some questions going for a little while longer. We'll be going almost for an hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great news.
It is. So, I think if we don't get any questions here in a minute or two, we might go ahead and cut this one down because an hour is kind of a long time to do this, but we've definitely enjoyed it. See, Corey's got a question. We'll get that in 1 second. But I think that we'll see what Sam thinks about it. Maybe we'll do this every other week. I don't think that we could do every week right now just because unless you guys, keep getting us full of questions for a full hour every time, then maybe we'll do it every week instead of bi-weekly or so. But we'll try again in 2 weeks. Since this one worked out well enough, I think we should do it again in 2 weeks, and hopefully you guys have built up a good set of questions again by then, and we'll do them. So let's see exactly what Corey has asked here. I would love to use MIDI timecode for the competition as opposed to Winamp. Can you guys recommend a program that I can use with an Arena or laptop running a T2 for sending MIDI timecode?
I'm a Reaper or Ableton guy.
Yeah,
Reaper's always been
Ableton,
my go-to.
And that's for getting it out of your computer. It's going to be whatever you have to use. T2 doesn't have a MIDI port, so you can't do MIDI timecode into a T2 because there's no MIDI port onto it, and it doesn't work the other way around. You could use Stimpy timecode with a T2 or the Arena because both have Stimpy timecode ports. And as for sending those, same thing. Reaper or any of those
Reaper
should be able to do it.
yeah.
There's also in testing I've used a little I don't even remember what it's called now. I used it on my Mac. It was some little program I found that just sends time code, and that's all I did with it was just to send time code. So
Yeah, I mean I know Sebastian and a couple of guys working in Germany have been experimenting with MIDI timecode over network, which has had some success. I'm not going to say try that because it may not work for you. It may not be the best way for you to go about it. If you've got an Arena that has a MIDI port on the back of it, doesn't it anyway?
Yeah.
So that's cool. But yeah, Reaper will do, and Ableton will do MIDI and SMPTE out. And SMPTE is essentially just an audio signal. So as long as you've got something that can understand it, you should be fine. Like most people I know who are using generally MIDI-based timecode, they are sending that out of a Focusrite Scarlett or something akin to that. If Behringer do a cheap USB interface that has MIDI on the back of it, for like £50, which is cheap as.
Yeah,
and that'll cover you for pretty much all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I've sent MIDI timecode out of a Mac laptop with a $10 USB to MIDI cable and had it work on my my Titan Mobile, and that was just literally. I think I only did it for testing. It was one of those make it work. Let's see how this works type deal. And
Yeah.
I never used it in the show, but it made the numbers change in the time code source. So I guess that's all that really matters, right?
Exactly. The only time I've ever found an issue with that is when a friend of mine bought one and it didn't have the in and the out labeled on it, and he was like frustrated for many hours until I went, "Have you tried the other ports?" And he was like, "No, that can't be the other port. They don't have labels." But I'm just assuming. I was like, "Try the other one." Bang, done.
Ouch. Yeah,
Problem solved.
I saw it wasn't mine, but someone else's was doing something similar, and the cables were actually labeled backwards. So out was out into the dongle, not they were like their logic was completely opposite. Well, most people think out is out, in is in, and they had backwards it. So it took him a while to figure that one out, and we hacked it and figured that out.
It's just cruel.
One thing I would say, Corey, one of the advantages for the competition in particular with using Winamp is that you can set Winamp as a fixture and control it as a fixture, and then you can start and stop the track with your cue list itself. So you set your first cue to not be on time code, and your first cue is when you hit go button, Winamp starts playing, and your time code runs from there. That can be an advantage to have Winamp start playing for you quickly rather than have to start the time code, and it can be an advantage. So keep that in mind, that you control Winamp as a fixture, so that might be helpful in your competition. So just want to keep in mind there.
There is now wrong with Winamp. I still love Winamp. I've done entire festival timecode programming on Winamp just because it was there.
Brian, do I hear trade-in value? Well, I'll say for trade-ins is talk to sales, not me. I'm support, not sales, for a reason. I don't want to be a sales guy.
We're not sales, but
saying we're not sales, but talk to the sales guys, and the sales guys do what sales guys do, and you call me when you want to know how to use it or it's broken. That's what I'm here for.
I suppose since we have mentioned sales and it has come up a few times, I know there's not tons of people here, but anyone who's not already, as familiar with things as some of you guys are, like Brian and a few of the other people in the audience tonight, the Avolites Innovation Tours might be a thing for you to pass a few hours of your time of an afternoon. There's a load of details about them on the official Facebook page, and there's a few details somewhere on the website, but essentially you've got Mr. Steve Warren has been hosting some really quite interesting, friendly, chilled out online meetings, I think through Teams or through Zoom. And he's just, along with a couple of the sales guys, just going through some of the interesting things that we've been doing over the last couple of years, some of the things that we're looking at, working on, and where we aim to be, at some point in the future once we are up and running and things get back to normal. But I've heard really great things about them. I haven't been involved with them myself, but the sales guys have been smashing those out, and they're doing like slotted appointments, and you can hang out, and it's really informal and chatty, and there's some interesting stuff that they're showing off. It's just nice to not just hear our voices for a change. So it might be worth your time, and it might be worth having a look at. I would go and have a look at the official Avo Facebook page to have a little look at that and get yourself on one of those, because it's good fun, and there's a few incentives and cool stuff if you happen to go and have a look, which is always nice.
Yes, yeah. There's I know a few guys here in the U.S. been getting ready to take them or take that little tour thing, and I think it is probably a good thing and help you come up with. I think the idea, some of it also is to put ideas in your head that you hadn't thought of before, and what you can use Avo to do that you may not have thought of. Especially integrating stuff like AI into your show, and it's not just for the video, and it's not just synergy. There's more to all of it, and maybe we can help you with some of that. So, since we haven't had any other, there's one Ross here popped in. Brian's about to say we haven't had any questions, so we'll take our leave, but we'll answer his question and then do that. A bit of random. What would you say is one of your favorite looks, giving away your master programming tips? I have no problem teaching anybody anything I do, because if it doesn't matter if you can program the same look, you got to know when to fire that look. So I have no problem with anybody ever seeing it.
And then he died. Rainbow.
Right, exactly. This look here. I'm kind of a fan of, kind of a little more complex. I'm a beamy guy. I like lots of beams. Um, just doing interesting looks with those. Like this one here. For the right time and the right song, this little wall X up thing would look absolutely, killer. But it really kind of depends on what you're doing at the time for the right one. Yeah, I guess I'm probably. I say the one look I'll use in absolutely every single show is going to be that blue in between song look that everybody uses. Other than that, I don't. It's all in. I always just I'm a kind of a busking guy when it comes to a lot of stuff. So a lot of my looks, I don't know what they're going to be until I've thrown it up on stage and went, "Oh, that was perfect," or "Oh, I'll never make that choice again." Why'd I fire that fader or that fader together? Ooh, that was terrible.
Oh dear. Oh no.
Just trying to find the first beat to get out of it, and change. All right, good.
There we go. That's such a hard question to answer that. That's like a genuinely difficult. My roots are in filthy rave club programming, and one of the things that I really enjoy is someone getting a drop just perfect, but not just like dumping in the strobes and that's it. Like some of the stuff I know, actually Steve posted today some recent photos from the Dimension tour and the Dimension show in London. I've worked with Dimension a couple of times. I can't remember the chap who was LDing for this tour, but he was really on it. And he just was nailing these drops, but not in a way that was like super in your face, blasting you out with white light. Loads of really well placed position palettes with the beams, with some of the laser work they had going on. Some real nice symmetrical, going into darkness, because Dimension's a big fan of big white light, but in an expansive manner. And just waiting for those moments and using darkness to build that atmosphere, and then really emphasizing those drops with like big white blasts out without using the strobe, but using sort of whites and blues and really emphatic color to deliver like a really nice club show. I'm a big fan of a really nice club show.
Yeah. I'm still a fan of, when it comes to clubs, tons of pin spots everywhere.
Oh,
just going to town on them. Is individually dimmered as you can possibly get, so you can get then putting a whole bunch of playbacks on and getting keyboardy play with your fingers and just tapping and making interesting looks on the fly as you go. So it's kind of I've always been a fan of that when it comes to nightclubs. Still, I love having tons of pin spots everywhere.
Saw some lovely rock. I love the drum. I love things being nice and synced up with drums. I went and watched St. Vincent's show a little while back, like a couple of years ago, and I'll always talk about that one in class because they had a lot of triggering going on. So they had a shed load of LED strobes on like underneath perspex stands underneath the band.
Yeah,
that looked wicked on like the kick, triggering on the kick with a fade out on like an overlap on the out.
Okay. Ooh.
So you had like that big slam in, and then that sort of dissipation every time the kick came in. I was like standing in front of it, going, "Yeah, this is great, man! I'm having a good time tonight."
Nice. So I hope that answered your question some, Ross. I know it wasn't an exact answer, but for that one, I don't think there's really a real answer to it. I'm an all over the place kind of guy. If I do what the show needs and go from there. So
it's all about the show and all about how creative you want to be with it. Really.
Yeah. Brian, I could be talked out of it. It's not my personal one per se. I think Gordon actually made the show file itself. But I'm not opposed. If you email me, it might magically appear in your return on your inbox on a return. Let's see here, Dennis. Hopefully next time you get some questions, we'll go with that. So,
I'm frantically reading out the speed of light as well.
Yeah, Dennis, there would be, if you on the Avolites USA YouTube, Fixture Exchange is in one of our videos that we did a couple of months ago at this point. But yes, the Fixture Exchange is a video there, and I'm sure on the regular Avolites YouTube there's at least one, if not multiple, videos on Fixture Exchange. So they can
Yes.
They can also always just ask questions directly in the group when we're not. It's kind of hard to show a lot of stuff with Exchange off the cuff right here, right now, but. Just ask a question in the group and we can try to work you through it there. And yeah, definitely, you don't have to use everything to all at the same time. You know, you can save some stuff on occasion, kids. You know, it doesn't need every beam all at once.
Same as you know, love, isn't it? Don't blow everything all at once.
Exactly. So with that, gentlemen, and hopefully some ladies, I didn't see any names pop up per se, but hopefully we have some of our lovely women LDs with us today, but if not, hopefully next time. But again, I think we're going to try this again in 2 weeks. We'll do a notification before it to try to get you guys out there, but build those questions up. You know, watch the YouTubes. You know, I'm trying to do videos for the USA YouTube as much as possible and adding in new ones as much as I can. But there you go. So thank you all for joining us, and catch you next time.
Nice one, guys.
Wheel stop. Roger, wheel stop, Discovery. Welcome back. A great ending to the new beginning.